All right. Okay, well, hello again. Welcome to this session 6 of the study group, The Leader's Handbook. For those who are new to the group, is Peter Scholtes was one of the proponents of Dr. Deming. He lived in Madison, Wisconsin, where I am. And so there was a group of, from 1980, early on, there was a group of uh, people in Madison, Wisconsin, who were very close to Deming and proponents of Deming. Brian Joyner, Bill Hunter. You don't hear Bill Hunter's name very much because he passed away at a young age. Um, and That's John Hunter's father. John Hunter is the Curious Cat website management group. And Peter Scholtes, Hero Hackerboard, and there were some other ones. I wasn't in Madison at the time, but that's the group. And of course, Brian Joyner started Joyner Associates, and Peter was with them. And later on, Peter went on his own. Peter's first book was the Team Handbook. In my opinion, this is still the gold standard in team building and teamwork. Uh, this is the first edition. He liked the first edition because there is an foreword by Dr. Deming and a foreword by Malcolm Knowles. Malcolm Knowles was a researcher in adult education, one of the pioneers in adult education, and Peter was his student. And in the book, he says one of my brightest students. And then that was in 1988. In 1998, Peter wrote the Leader's Handbook. And sadly, by then, Peter developed a lot of health issues. I wish, as he says, if he had to do it over, he would write the Leader's Handbook first and then the Team Handbook. I think this is probably in my opinion, one of the most comprehensive treatment of Dr. Deming's philosophy. It's incomplete. It's how to go from the ideas and theories and concepts to practical experience in those. And I highly recommend it. We really don't do justice um, in terms of just the short time we have. I'm giving a talk in July forum dedicated to Peter and his work. He passed away in 2009 here in Madison. We became very good friends, and he was a great mentor to me. And I'm going to share my slides now, and we get started. Okay, everybody sees my slides. Okay, today we're going to talk about competency two and just a couple of things about keeping track in chapter 7 in approaches to data collection and data analysis. And as I usually say, these are my guys right now. So this is Dr. Deming. I got to first time I was exposed to his work was in 1984, and then through him, of course, I learned about Ackoff and Schuhart and Peter. Today we made some references to Schuhart in the past, but today we'll make more references to him. Now, what is the connection, as I said, between the Leader's Handbook and Dr. Deming's philosophy, as he summarized it in his last book, The System of Profound Knowledge? Is that, first of all, after this series, there is going to be another study session on System of Profound Knowledge, and Mike Beck will be doing that. I highly encourage you to attend those as well. So this is a system of profound knowledge. As the elements of the system of profound knowledge is appreciation for a system, uh, um, knowledge about variation, which we addressed today, theory of knowledge, and psychology. So the competencies in the Leader's Handbook, as Peter is very clear as what the purpose is, are based on Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge. And this graph is from Peter's book. You see how they're connected? It's not, I have done this in the past too. Address this issue and this issue topic and this topic and that topic. But really, you can do that separately. You have to really look at it as a system. It's not four elements, four independent elements, but they're all interconnected. So what Peter says, it is essential to understand the four areas are an interactive, independent system of knowledge. They're not separate. One cannot fully understand or apply one area of the profound knowledge without understanding the other three and how all four areas impact each other. So these are all connected. To me, the profundity of the system of profound knowledge are not in the ideas themselves, although Dr. Deming elaborated on each one of them and detailed discussion. The profundity of the system of profound knowledge, how all these four elements were put together as a system. And I think that is very profound to me. Systems and systems thinking were around before Deming came up with the system of profound knowledge. There was knowledge about variation. Psychology was there. Theory of knowledge is based on pragmatism. It was around for a long time. But what Deming did, that he connected all of these four into a system, and a system of interactive and interdependent system. And I think that's what's profound about this. So these are the competencies that Peter, 6 competencies that he's developed. Today we're talking about competency 2, the ability to understand the variability of work in planning and in problem solving. Just make a point. Sometimes it's easy to confuse variation with variety. This is a reference to variation is variability. Not variety. Is knowledge about variation is knowledge about variability. And what Peter says, not understand the variability of work and planning and problem solving. And this is what we'll focus on today. As I've mentioned in the past, I can't see you on my screen. So if you like to jump in, just unmute your microphone and jump in and comment. So what Peter taps into and what this knowledge about variation is based on are these quotations, 3 by Deming. These two are from the New Economics. Life is variation. Variation there will always be between people, output, in service, in products. What is the variation trying to tell us about process and about the people that work in it? And then he goes on to say, Dr. Deming, understanding variation is the key to success in quality and business. One of the earliest references Dr. Deming made about understanding variation is this. If I had to reduce my message for management to just a few words, I'd say it had to do with reducing variation. And I remember him in one of the Ohio Quality and Productivity seminars, he was just doing his narrower in terms of variation. One of Dr. Deming's favorite quote is in Out of the Crisis and other places is this by Lloyd Nelson. Actually, I built a course around this quotation. The central problem of management in all its aspects, including planning, procurement, manufacturing, research, sales, personnel, accounting, and I've added medicine, and law, is to understand better the meaning of variation, and extract information contained in variation. I think this is really is so fundamental and is so you can build on that the central problem is to understand variation and extract information contained in variation, and that's what we'll talk about today. So to do that, I want to start with an example. Um, let's say this is an example. You can apply your own data set to this, but this is an actual data set from incident counts in a hospital. So this is you're sitting in a management meeting. Let's say this is the CEO of the company. It's called the meeting, and the report has come in that for the month of August we have 10 incident count. That's not good. And to the question of how are we doing, 10, that's not good. This is a very major safety issue in hospitals. Uh, so so you call a meeting, you know, when the big wheel turns, everybody turns with it. So you call a meeting and you want to see why we had 10. And here is the dilemma of the plight of a junior manager that I used to go to this management meeting. I was the quality director of a small company, and so we're trying to explain why it was 10 and what happened, and eventually will decide how do you go from a number, a value, to information. So you call a meeting, and you want to see why we had 10 this month of August. And here is what the method of analysis is in most cases. You compare it to the last period. You compare it to the last month. And you say, gee, that was 43. We had a 43% increase. This is not acceptable. Explain this difference. Remember, every time you sit in a meeting and somebody says, what happened? All they're asking you is to explain this difference and the reasons for it. Hence, explain the variation. This is not acceptable because that's all you have. So this is the comparison to the last period. Remember, the basis of any decision making, any data analysis, to make a decision about the future. So you can make a decision about the future based on 2 data points. So essentially, you're asking what happened here from this point to that point. Explain it. Then you may decide to compare it to the same period last year. This is a common practice. August of this year compared to the August of that year. Well, we had a 42% reduction, right? As though nothing has happened in between these times. We might have been like this, or it might have been like this, or it might have been like this. We don't know when you're simply looking at 2 data points. But we were doing so good. You remember in May, we had such a bad incident count, and I called the meeting, and we threatened everybody. If we don't go reduce this incident count, we'll go out of business. You may get a pink slip on the way out. See how it worked? It worked. You put fear of God in people, the productivity is improved. And then look what happened. We got to this low point. We had a pizza party. We all got together. We had the employee of the month and all sorts of good things happening. And look what happened then. That's what happens when you're nice to people. The incident count increased. So this is what goes on in most of the management meetings and trying to deal with the data. And you're trying to explain the differences between these data points. However, this is the entire data set for the last 20 months. The data is produced is the output of a process, and the output of process is affected by a number of factors and their interaction. And this is, if you look at over a period of time, this is the 20 months of data. The simplest you can do, just put them in a time series or a run chart and look at the behavior of data over a period of time. Hence the process behavior charts. And this is what you have to look at. That's the incident rate over a period of time. But what we've done so far, compare this point to that point, or this point to this point, or this period, trying to make a decision. This up and down movement of the points is simply variation. So the first thing and the most important thing to do is very inexpensive, cheap, easy to do. Get your data, put it in a run chart or a time series, see what it looks like. This is the running record. That's what the run chart is, the running record of your data, to see if you see any unusual patterns or behavior. So how do you account for this kind of variation, this up and down movement? What makes you think that this point is different than that and that point, or this point or that point, that you have to call a meeting and take action on? So this goes to the heart of understanding variation. And there was similar problem that was going on in the 1920s at the phone company, Western Electric, where the problem went to Dr. Schuhart. And as Dr. Deming said, their motto was, as alike as two telephones. Harder they tried to make telephones alike, worse the problem got. And Dr. Schuhart, through many years of work, he characterized the variation. He said there are two types of variation. The data exhibits two types of variation. One is that if your data points behave randomly within some upper and lower control limit of variability, there are ways to calculate this limit. These are known as common cause, random, noise, or routine variation. All right? One way to think about that is, right now, I hear noise in my office here. You hear noise in your office. You hear me talking. You hear the air conditioning or the heater. All right? You hear somebody walking in the hallway. You hear the fan running. This is routine variation, random variation. You don't jump up and jump down. You don't overreact to it. Your data may exhibit that kind of variation, up and down movements of variation. Monthly, daily, yearly. My blood pressure, there is variable. I don't jump up and react to it every time a couple of points up or a couple of points low. So this is known as if the variation behaves randomly within these limits, and there is a way to estimate the limits. This is known as common cause, random, or routine variation. This is the type of variation, the points are within on a control chart that over a long period all fall inside these control limits. Common cause variation stays the same day to day, period to period, lot to lot, shift to shift. These are all Dr. Deming's description. It's also known as predictable variation. So if you want to improve this system, rather than focusing on this point and that point and that point, focus on this underlying system that produced that variation. You work on the system. Improvement requires systemic changes, not overreacting or acting on this point or this point or this point on this point. This is random variation. This is common cause variation. Now, there happens times when there is special cause or assignable cause or exceptional cause present. It would be the same as I'm sitting in my office and all of a sudden I hear a booming sound outside my door. That's not routine noise. That's not common. It's something unusual, something exceptional. It's the same way with your data. There are situations where there may be a special cause or an exceptional variation present. A special cause of variation is something special, not part of a system of common causes. It is detected by a point that fall outside the control limits. This is unpredictable. Okay? Improvement comes from removing the effect of a special cause. So in this case, the action is on a special cause on this point. You can say what happened here. You can say what happened here. That's the special cause. So the action here is on the point. The action here is on the system for the purpose of improvement. That's a very important distinction. But how would you know that? How would you know that if these points, if the common cause variation or a special cause variation present in that? You won't, unless you use a control chart as prescribed by Dr. Schuchart. Unless you look at the behavior of the process and understanding variation. So here is the same data that we just looked at, the incident rate, incident count, in a control chart. Remember, we acted on this point. What happened here? What happened there? As you can see, all the points are randomly behaving. They came from the same system of causes. There is a system of causes and their factors and their interaction that produce that range of variation. To interpret this chart, you say for the last 20 months, we have our monthly average is about 12 and a half incidents per month. But the range of variability or range of variation can vary between 4 to 21. That's a bigger concern here than this point or this point or that point. In this case, the improvement is we want to reduce the variation. We want to reduce our incident rates. This is infection rate, count, actually, rate. We want to reduce the variation to a lower level and narrow the variation. So rather than being concerned about this point or that point or that point, be concerned about this. And any action to improve that, in this case, to lower the variation, is on the system of causes, not on individual points. The difference is immense. To know the difference between common cause variation or working on the system and a special cause working on an individual point is the difference between success and failure. So if you don't know the difference between the two, we are apt to make two mistakes. Mistake one is interpreting a noise or voice. So you have this interpreting a noise, a routine variation, if it were a signal. In other words, acting on these individual points, treating them as a special cause. Interpreting common cause variation as a special cause variation. Or you can make mistake two, failure to detect a signal when there is one present, and you treat that as a common cause. Oh, this always happens. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. To confuse the two, Dr. Deming called it's tampering. Action taken on a stable system, action taken on this system, in response to variation within a statistical control is an effort to compensate this variation is tampering, the result of which will inevitably increase the variation and will increase costs from here on out. But how would you know? How would you know if this is a common cause or a special cause without understanding variation and understanding Schuchart's methodology? You don't. How can you make that distinction? Well, here is another example. This is revenue. Let's say this is Terry's company. He just got this number and called everybody to the office. Explain it. Explain, Natalie, why the sales went down this month, or HR. Why the sales were down. When you ask that question of somebody, they come up with an answer because their job depends on that. And then maybe we take action on that. See, we were doing good here, but things got worse. The month before, we were doing not as good, but I called a meeting and it seemed like it had worked. It's the same way. Overreacting to month variation, day-to-day variation, whether it's revenue, whether it's cost, production. But plot your data. Here is 24 months of data, revenue. If I sit here and look at this long enough and hard enough, I can see points moving around. Now, or I can look at it from a control chart's point of view. All 12 4 months belong to the same system of causes. Even though these numbers are not the same, but they came from the system of causes. As far as the system is concerned, all these numbers are the same because they all belong to this system. This is the range of prediction in the near future. Okay. You want to improve that? Obviously, this is a revenue. You want to improve that. Well, you want to work on the system of causes. And you want to improve that to a higher system. But you have a bigger problem on your hand. Based on the system, look at the range of variation from $69 million to $110 million. That's the possible range of variation in this. You have a bigger problem. How can you predict monthly revenue with that range of variation? You want to narrow the variation, better monthly predictions? Well, work on the system. So, Dr. Deming says to demand something beyond the capability of the system, and this is the capability of this system under current condition. And this is the strongest I have heard anybody state that. To demand something is beyond the capability of this system is like to defy, it makes as much sense as defying gravity. This is in the new economics. It makes as much sense as it is to defy gravity. So this process is predictable in the near future. It's a system of causes. There is nothing unusual about it. You want to improve the system depending on the purpose. In this case, you may want to narrow the variation so you have a more predictable process, more predictable month-to-month variation in your revenue. There are 3 ways to demand a number that is beyond the capability of the system. 3 ways you can do that. One is to distort the data. You demand people to do that, they distort the data. They come up with it. The Enrons of the world, right? When you demand Wells Fargo employees to come up with new accounts, they open fictitious accounts, right? Distort the data, especially in an environment of fear. You demand people to come up with certain requirements, quota, or whatever. They come up with it. That is beyond the capability of the current system. Or you can do that, reaching that by destroying the system. Get to that point, no matter at what cost. I have observed that personally when I work in the industry, how the salespeople were forced to come up with better numbers for the month, and they were selling things to the customers they didn't need, or they were selling next month products this month, so this month will look better. And next month comes around, and then things are not as good. So you push, 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 and try to reach that number and destroy the system. The other way, and the most effective way to reach that number, is to improve the system. You improve the system, so improve it to a higher level, so it would include that point. Now that point is a part of the system. So there are three ways to reach something that is a number, a value that is beyond the capability of the current system. One is either distorted data, fudging the numbers. There is a lot of creative accounting that goes around. Distort the system, try to reach that number no matter at what cost, or improve the system. We're through a continuous improvement, PDCA cycles and planning, improve that system. All right. So I'm going to pause for a moment. And first of all, for you to share the confusion of the two, acting on a tampering with the process, acting over a value when it's a part of the system. What do you think happens most of the time in your organization in terms of dealing with values? Are you committing mistake one or mistake two? And then your experience with this, trying to reach a point that is beyond the capability of the system. So I have a couple of more slides, but this is a good time to discuss tampering with the process, overreacting to variation. Let me share. Every time I go see my primary care physician, I take a control chart of my blood pressure, my A1C. I make sure. I say, all right, you see, it's all random. I turn it into an educational experience. Don't change my medication on my blood pressure. It's really just fine. It's just random variation. Because that's all they make. The medicine is notorious. They take your blood pressure and they compare it to the last time you were there. I take him 20 data points, right? So what has been your experience in that regard?
I could say a few words, Fazel. Probably in our case, we don't use enough data points when we have our monthly report out meetings. We just use data points from year-to-date totals ongoing. So one area we can improve on is just to see if it's in control, the stability of the system versus just using a limited number of data points. So
can someone address the point he just made, that what's the problem with the year-to-date data? Is that what you meant? Just the total up to current year-to-date?
Well, no, we plot monthly.
Oh, you plot monthly. Okay.
But we don't have enough.
Yeah.
It's not in a control chart or in a run chart or
Yeah.
individual values chart. It's more on a line graph.
Right.
But limited number of points.
So it's in Dr. Deming's book. Just it says simply start with the run chart, a time series. That's a good starting point. Why do we do that? Why should we plot it over time? Anybody can jump in.
I think to answer or give an opinion on your question, do we make mistake one or mistake two more commonly? I think we tend to make mistake one more commonly because if you look at how we successfully evolved as a species, um, when the saber-toothed tiger jumps out on the path in front of you, the ones that reacted quickly and got out of the way survived. So I think we're pretty well evolved to react to something that's just happening suddenly, and that tends to result in over interpretation of data that we're and I think you can see it all over the place when you start looking, right? I mean, how many company policies are there that are based upon something that happened sometime that was bad or wrong, and we're going to make sure that never happens again? How many laws do we have that are the same way? There's a lot of that type of thing around, I think, that's probably more common than the other mistake. At least that's what it looks like to me anyway.
Anybody else?
My experience is similar. In my early days, before I really began to understand variation, I made mistake one much more often than mistake two. But over time, I've occasionally caught myself making mistake one, but a whole lot less frequently than I did early in this work.
One example I used in the classroom with the graduate students, these were all family, I had family, and I know Natalie has two youngsters. The confusion between the common cause and the special cause variation. The confusion of the two is if you correct your kids on everything, you're treating everything as a special cause. Don't do this, don't do that, constantly. All right? It's just you're overreacting to variation. That's common cause variation. They do everything and you try to fix everything. The other side of that is the kid comes home and I don't know, there's something unusual and you say, oh, you ignore it. Oh, well, these are kids, sometimes it happens. That's mistake too, treating a special cause as common cause. No, it's not. You know? So I don't know, for some reason, some of my students like that example. It's just if you overreact to everything your kids do, you're confusing that's treating every data points as a special cause. So and it's and in my experience, and I've talked to a lot of people, that committing mistake one is more common than mistake two. That is overreacting to all the up and down movements of the points and over every reaction. Accidents in the workplace, all the memos are issued, all the instructions come out. And then when you look at the number of monthly accidents and injuries, you see it's been near misses. I requested that data last year there is a website, FAA has a website. There are hundreds of near misses all the time. I don't know, daily, dozens and dozens. You don't hear about it. You only hear about it when there is an accident. What happened? The possibility of a mistake, an accident was there all along. And Peter wrote about this with the Exxon Valdez. The Exxon Valdez, the accident in Alaska. Hazelwood was Captain Hazelwood. That they kind of blamed him for everything. then, oh, he was doing this. They treated it as a special cause. Well, they went and found out that what Hazelwood was doing, traveling in low waters to be faster and sleeping on the job or whatever they were doing, it was happening all the time. It just things lined up correctly that day, hit the ground. Hospital, I know Paul was in healthcare. This example I use is actually infection in a hospital, infection rate or count. The possibility of the accident is common cause, is there all the time unless medication error. I've had a lot of pharmacy students. The medication errors. If you look at it, you can see it's you only hear from it when somebody is adversely or when it hits the news. So all right. So and then the other one. Any comments about how to, there are only possibilities of going beyond the capability of the system. You either distort the data, distort the system, or improve the system. I have observed a lot of these. Especially distorting the data. I worked for a company that was nothing, it was a terrible environment of fear in the production process. Numbers to meet, quotas to meet.
I would
Monthly
say
reports.
right. I've just been lucky that like I've had a lot of opportunities where my job has been to go and improve the system, right? And I've been allowed to do that, right?
Good.
Um, my last job, I had a fun chart, which is that was the variation of our build times for our software product, and it's like complete insanity with like variation between like it takes an hour on a good day and it takes like 12 hours on a bad day. It's completely crazy. And then we reworked how we did our builds, and you can see the variation smooth out at a lower point. It was really nice.
My students were really graduate MBA students. Several of them were in very important and responsible position in terms of processes. One of them learned about this improving the process, and he worked in account receivables. And in a period of um, 12 or 14 months, he reduced the account receivable days from the time they bill a client until that money from 54 days to 32 days, reducing the variation. That's an enormous amount of time. They had $11 million on average, $11 million in account receivables. Can you imagine that kind of money coming in 10, 12, 15 days faster? Just going through the process of improving the system, right? Sunny days, rainy days, and good days, bad days, coming in 10 days earlier on average. Here are some examples. This is that's an example of a routine variation. This is the pH inspection for batches of chemicals. You started it with a time series run chart. This is routine variation. All right, don't overreact to this point or that point. All right, they all came, and this is the control chart of that, came from the same system's causes. an underlying process. Perhaps you may be concerned about this range of variability in the pH values of all 25 batches, because this is a predictable process in the near future. You may say this 5.5 to 7.5. That may be too wide of a variation in your incoming material. Then you improve the system. You don't need a lot of sophistication to figure out there is something unusual about this data set. That's the number of days between accidents, spills. This was oil spills in a waterway. Okay, you can simply see that just a visual inspection of your data can give you a lot of insight. This is a pattern. Once you plot the data, you see patterns. It could be routine variation. It could be unusual variation, a special variation. It could be a cyclical, a repeatable pattern. But if you just simply look at the numbers in rows and columns of tables, you don't see any of this. It's once you take it apart and plot it over time, you can see the behavior of that data. Because this is the way the data communicates with you. Yeah, data is communicating. The Schuart says this is the voice of the process. This is how the data communicates with you. If I put all of this on an average or on a histogram, you don't see any of these patterns.
Fazel?
Yes.
The cyclical one right there, in my experience, reminds me of quarterly sales where the sales staff will try anything they can to get as many sales in by the end of the month. So there's a spike at the end of the month, and then it drops at the beginning of the month or quarter or whatever the time frame is.
This one in particular reminds me of what it looked like for the company I work where Black Friday was our big day, right? So we'd have these weird like purchasing patterns to our product that looked like this.
Yeah.
Right. Our giant sale is in beginning of Q4, right? Whatever, November, right?
Well, the advantage of looking this in a control chart is that you have the ability to distinguish between the types. The control charts characterizes the variation, and you are able to distinguish between the types of variation. Are you going to act on the system, or you're going to act on the point? And any pattern, especially there are more detection rules for special causes just than a point outside the limits. There are other patterns that indicate the special causes, but that would be a good starting point. See that this is a good starting point. Just simply a run chart to look at the behavior. You take your data apart on a running record. This is you can observe patterns. You can see maybe this is something that started over here that needed your attention. It's only 5 points, but something for you to pay attention to. Now, when it comes to variation, I took this chart from Myron Trivers on the article Germ Theory of Management. That what happens that if this is the starting point of the process, the variation as it goes through different stages, if you don't do something about that, address the variation, is amplified. You see the range of variability is increased as that product, service, or whatever the process is indicating is amplified through the process. then you have your management meeting here. What happened? Explain this, that. So variation is amplified as it travels through different stages of the process, different systems. All right. So Peter addresses what happens when you don't understand variation. Okay. We are apt to make mistakes, one or two, confusing common cause with a special cause variation. We see trends where there are no trends. Costs are out of control. Somebody yells, the CEO, call production manager. Costs are out of control. Well, what does your data say? They may simply be like this. Cost has always been a problem. So you see trends where there are no trends. You miss trends where there are trends. Oh, this is the example of a kid, you know. Oh, this happens every once in a while, but nothing to worry about, nothing unusual. Well, it may be a special cause that requires your attention. If we don't understand variation, we're apt to blame people. Usually blame the individual nearby. Or we can give credit to individual for making improvements when it still had giving individuals credit for something I had no control over. It was just a random variation. Employee of the month. Why? I've never seen in any organization that the employee of the month be the same person 2 months in a row or multiple months. It's just put your hand, it's like a lottery, just take a name out. You don't understand the past performance and not be able to predict the future. If you don't understand, the purpose of data collection and analysis is to make a decision. And all decisions are about the future. They're not about the past. The past has already happened. All decisions are about the future. It's about prediction. How are you going to predict? What is the behavior? What is this process is going to do in the future? Well, Schuhart gave us the tool, a way to do that. If we don't understand variation, we don't understand our current situation, our capabilities, our vulnerabilities, what systems to be improved or abandoned. Some rules regarding the data also is data occurs in time. All data have a time order. Things happen, orders, production, monthly costs. There is an order to these things. All you have to do is plot the data in the order it was collected. In most cases, this time order is essential context which must be preserved in the presentation. That's the only way you can observe the behavior of the data if you plot it in the order you collected it. So that time order is often the most important characteristic of the data. Averages, ranges, and histograms all obscure the time order for the data. If you do a histogram of this data set, you miss all of this. You miss all of these. The average is simply a value. Is the central tendency of the number. Is you're making a decision based on the average, you're obscuring the variation in the process.
If I might, you're obscuring the information in the process.
Information in the process, yes.
Yeah.
Remember what Nelson said, Dr. Lloyd Nelson said. Extract information. Time series demonstrate the behavior of the process, ability to visualize variation, these up and down movements of the points, and what type of variation is present. Because essentially what that would tell you what kind of decision to make and what kind of action to take. Action on improving the system or action on an individual point. The data must be relevant. What is the purpose of this data you are collecting? Too often there are plenty of data that are useless and ignored or useful and still ignored. Although data are all over the place, most data, however, are not worth capturing. There is no shortage of data, but a lot of companies, they have data galore. Well, what do they do with it? Examine why you're collecting the data and what's the purpose of it. Did anybody see that video by Dr. Deming that was visiting a company, and the inspector at the end of the line had the stacks of inspection, and there was just the stacks and the stacks of the inspection. And Dr. Deming says, "Can I have some of these?" And she gave him some, and Dr. Deming said, she was delighted to get rid of them. Of course, Dr. Deming put it on control charts and talked to them about variation. So two questions to determine the importance of the data when you're dealing with this topic. If we had this data, what would we do without them? Is it that important? And if we didn't have this data, how would or do we suffer? That's the vital question. If we had this data, what would we do with them? If we didn't have the data, how would or do we suffer as a result of that? These are from chapter 7 of the leader's handbook. It's really great in terms of giving ideas as how to collect the data and what type of data in all different industries and processes. He makes a lot of suggestions. Start with the purpose, customers, employees, safety, and where you suffer pain. Find out your key quality indicators. Do you know them? What are the key quality indicators? How are you doing in relations to them? And here are some examples. Indicators to show you are on track with the organization's purpose. Indicators to meeting customers' needs and delighting them. But of course, you have to know what they are. If you don't, what difference does it make? If you don't know where you're going, any road would get you there. So identify them, and how are we doing in relations to them? Indicators on employee turnover, accident, and injuries. That goes to the heart of taking care of your employees, health and safety. Indicators to monitor the causes and occurrences of known chronic problems and breakdowns. There's some examples I took, but I highly recommend you, if you want to follow some projects, to look at that. And it's really been broken down by different industries and processes. I often, in many of my meetings with management groups, I pose this question, and they all look at me like I'm from another planet. I say, what are the key quality, customer quality indicators? What are they? List them. I used to ask for 5, but I didn't get. Now I ask for 3. What are the 3 things that the customers are key quality indicators? Do you know them? Then of course there is a follow-up question that how do you know? How do you know this is key quality characteristics? How do you know? Did you come up with them, or you customers came up with them, or you researched them, or consumers? How do you know the customers care about these things that you say they do? Then if they care about this, how are you doing in relations with them, with these indicators? What is your data? Let's say you know it's cycle time, all right, which is very common. How are you doing in relations to them? Okay. And quite often when I ask this question, I hear some generalities about kind of feeling good kind of statements. Oh, we care about our customers. They know we care about them, and that's all fun and dandy. But what are the key quality characteristics? How do you know? Do you know them? How are you doing in relations to them? Essentially, what is your data to support that? How are you doing in relations to that? All right, so I want to close with this. I use in a lot of my discussions as how you go about doing this thing. Drunkard and the street lamp dilemma. A police officer responded. This is the best cartoon I could find online. He's looking for a quarter, but the story is actually about somebody losing their keys. A police officer spotted a drunk man on his hands and knees, frantically searching for something under the glow of a street light. What are you looking for? The officer asked. I lost my keys, the man slurred, barely looking up. The officer knelt down and the two of them searched the pavement together for several minutes. Are you absolutely sure you lost them right here? The officer asked frustratingly. No, I lost them over there in the park, the drunkard replied. Then why are you searching over here? The officer asked. The man looked at him as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, because this is where the light is. This is where the light is. Why are you working on this problem? Well, this is where the light is. Right? This is the data we have. It may be relevant or irrelevant, but this is what we have. All right. So we have about 10 minutes or so for discussion. Just jump in. I think that was the last slide I had. Terry, you're right now in the thick of things, and I see you have your human resources director available, and
Yes, Gwendy.
potential CEO. What are some of the challenges you have in terms of some of the topics we talk? You can all jump in, but since you're in the
Well,
trenches.
well, I think the last basic rules regarding data, when you asked the question, what the customers care about and how do we know? I'm not sure we really know, and we collect data on that. Because we collect data on the manufacturer collects data as far as guest satisfaction. currently we're booking out 3 weeks in our in our repair facility. Honda, I think you're a couple of weeks out, 2 weeks out. Our body shop is 6 months out. So, we don't really, I'm not sure if we're really measuring what our guests really care about and how to find out. I don't know, Natalie, do you want to add anything on that?
I wouldn't have anything to add in regards to that, but I think like when we look at data points, like when it comes to sales, where what we expect and what the system can provide there's a difference there. So it's like we have these targets, but I don't know if our system's set up to reach those targets. So
where do the targets come from?
From the manufacturers.
I thought you were going to say from Terry.
Well, I do set some too. We do set them as a management group, and maybe we're setting them the wrong way. We look for a 10% increase.
Yeah. So I, this quota system, Dr. Deming was very down on that and all of that. So, but remember, he also said, if you set a goal, provide a methodology to reach that. Okay, as we read that, talked about that last night. A goal without a methodology is hallucination. That's what Peter Scholtes said last week. Yeah, but remember, if you're setting a goal beyond the capability of the current system, you have to set a system to reach that. Because what you see is what you're getting. You can jump up, jump down, cajole, beg, scream, threaten. These limits of variability is your current capability. You're not going to, what you see is what you're getting. You can push the salesman or salespeople as much as you want, and they may come up. There are 3 ways they can reach that number: distort the numbers, distort the system, or improve the system to reach that. So yeah, that's fine if you want to set a goal, but provide a methodology to reach that. By what method? This is what Dr. Deming's famous line, right, Mike? By what method?
I think our method, what is PDCA. Yeah. We plan and we're trying to do them more rapidly and learn, and that's our method to improve the system and the capability of our salespeople and management.
And I can say, by the virtue of you being here and asking questions about Dr. Deming, you're ahead of a lot of similar organizations. I can tell you that.
Yeah. I have a question to the group. What's the 3 ways to improve to start 3 ways to start the system or improve the system? How do others? What are some ways to improve the system that you've encountered that have been very successful?
I'll share one method that involves two-way feedback. A process that I learned quite a while ago was to make sure that I talked to every person in my team every day. That included my boss. And to identify what is their experience in the system that I need to manage. How could we make the system better? How could we make better reliability? Or how could we make better service to customers? How could we make it more safe? All of those things that are key quality indicators. And in the process of having a conversation with them about the work that we're both involved in, we collectively have the opportunity to learn from each other in this two-way feedback. I need feedback on what I can do to improve the system, and they need feedback to know how well they're doing. And if we find a gap between what the expectations are of either party, well, then we can figure out how do we fix that. And so the conversations with everybody on our immediate team every day is really a powerful way when we run into a problem to do some brainstorming and pick each other's brains about what could we do, and then run a PDSA cycle. If you're into lean, a PDCA. But it is a two-way process to figure out how do we together improve the system and our performance together. That's one method that I've found very successful.
Thank you, Dennis.
I could
Anybody
add to
else?
that.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
In addition to Dennis's comments, having a place to do it and a regularity to doing it. So having a stand-up meeting around a chart, a set of charts, or whatever you use as the data sources so you can review things together on a regular basis. It could be daily for your shop employees with their leadership team. It could be weekly or some other time period for other employees, the sales guys perhaps. But have a stand-up meeting regularly timed. Everybody's expected to be there. It's short, it's succinct, and you have a chance to surface ideas, follow up with them, plan, do, check, act, plan, do, study, act cycles. That's what I would recommend.
You just be careful not to make it a status meeting, right? That you don't want people talking about their status. You want to get people focused on the kinds of problems that are actually happening.
Exactly.
And, right. But there's a tendency to head towards status, and you have to kind of fight against it. Whoever's facilitating.
Yeah. Good. Thank you.
I can make an offer to you, to Natalie first, as if she likes to share the data, if it's not proprietary data, is if you want to look at the monthly sales and the target set for that month, let's say 18, 24 months, I can help you develop understand variation in that, and you can see what you wished it was versus what it actually is, because that would give you some insight as how the process is actually behaving, or any other data that you and we can discuss that offline, and I can meet with you to go through the process of setting it up and what is the data communicate, because the data communicates with you. You can't blame data for anything. It just tells you how things are. You can blame your blood pressure cuff for your blood pressure. It just tells you what the numbers are. And if there are other things that is of importance, what is the purpose? Why you collecting this data, and what is it you want to know? The other offer I have is for the human resources. I'm sorry, your name escaped me.
Gwendy, that's Gwendy.
Gwendy. Okay, Gwendy. What are some of the important employee health and safety, some of the employee data that is important to the organization? People say, oh, people are our main assets. Well, that's a slogan and an exhortation in a lot of organizations. But what is important? Is it turnover? Is it injuries? Is it safety? Is it absenteeism? And you, because that would lead you, it's just scratches the surface. That might lead you to some other things that might be of systemic changes that might require. And the same thing with you, Terry. If there is a data set that you as the CEO is interested to say, gee, I really want to know these things. It may be the same data Natalie has, but that's the only way you can really get your feet wet and understand what it is, and then to see what the nature of the variation is and work your way. And then as you grow and you educate your people can do more of these things. How long does it take to change a fuel pump or whatever? I don't know. Those are the kind of things that maybe, but what are some of the key, what is, like, take something that is important for customer, key quality customer that is important. that that needs to be looked at and how we're doing in relations to that. So that's my offer. If you like to, I'm happy to work with you on that and just show you how you put this together and how the variation behaves and what is it that it's communicating to you.
I appreciate about the two-way feedback. Being HR, you start to learn that you're going to learn from your people. And you have to listen to your people. And we started doing, when I joined Terry, I started doing, it's called a personal stay interview. And I try to pick 2 to 3 employees all the time and take them aside and ask them several questions on, why do you like working here? Why do you stay here? What don't you like? What could be listening to them? And it's funny how 4 different people from 4 different areas have all positive things. They've said the same thing. But it's funny when you hear they bring up something that's been bothering them and it was in every area. You know you have something you need to look at and start listening and start helping and making it better. And you learn from that.
Yeah. There is a list of questions we shared either last session or the session before that was addressing. It's like 4 or 5 questions you distribute and, what do you like about working here? What legacy you would like to leave behind and things of that nature that is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I got that. Yeah. Those were from, I think, the defining the purpose in Peter's book.
defining the purpose. That's correct, Terry.
They're very good, good questions.
So,
yeah.
But anyway, we're running a little over. Any other comments that anybody wants to jump in? What time is it where you are, Piotr?
It's 10:30 p.m.
Oh wow. You are committed to the philosophy.
Yeah.
Well, yes, and there aren't any other sources of wisdom, and definitely not in Poland. And then it's the teachings from Deming's and people alike are not very well known within Europe. So so I'm taking any opportunity that I have, and I'm willing to stay up late.
Yeah, feel free to reach any of us you see on the screen. Feel free to reach out and for support, for resources. We'll all be happy to support you in that area.
Thank you very much. I will definitely make note of that and make use of it at some point.
All right. Okay. Well, Terry, you can share my email with them in terms of data. If anybody is interested in data analysis and variation. Any other comments before we?
Yeah.
All right. So we'll see you next week, hopefully.
Thank you.
Fazel.
All right. Take care. All right.
Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.